Dad told about things that went on in the community. I'll tell a little story about my dad. When he was in school, he had friends that went to church in Caledonia. And because he went to the church in Middleport, the Middleport church was always at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it still is. So in the summertime, being a farm boy, Sunday afternoon was the only time that he had off to play with his friends. But of course, he had to go to church in Middleport in the afternoon. So when he got old enough, he would swim across the river on a Sunday afternoon and hide in the bushes across the river until his mom and dad finally gave up calling for him. And he was an only child, which I thought, like, you just went and left your kid. You didn't know whether he was drowned or where he was. But he would wait until he saw them leave, and he'd swim back across the river and get on his bicycle and ride to Caledonia and play with his friends.
Wow. That's a great
Isn't
story.
that funny?
So how old would he be around this? Welcome to the introductory episode of the Middleport Heritage Society podcast. I'm Blain Albin.
I'm Mary Anne Workman-Rose.
And I'm Joyce Osinga.
We are all board members of the Middleport Heritage Society. Mary Anne is the current president, and Joyce is the current secretary. We are embarking on this podcast project to help Middleport Heritage Society connect with its members and anyone else interested in our local history. For those of you that have stumbled across this podcast and have no idea what or where Middleport is, let me help you. The village of Middleport that we're talking about is located in the southeast region of the county of Brant in the heart of southern Ontario, Canada. It's nestled along the banks of the Grand River, which flows through the center of Brant County and through the city of Brantford and the town of Paris. Before amalgamation in 1999, Brant County was divided into 5 townships. Middleport was in Onondaga Township. There's a link in the show notes to Google Maps showing the location of Middleport. I'll get more into the history of Middleport and Onondaga Township in a minute, but first you should know more about us.
Hi, my name is Joyce Osinga, and I thought I'd give you a little bit of my background. I worked as an administrative assistant for 40 years, retiring 13 years ago from the Department of Critical Care at the Hamilton General Hospital. I was born to Ross and Jenny Deagle 71 years ago and had one brother, Jim. I was the 4th generation to live on our farm on Lot 88 River Range, Highway 54 in the county of Brant. I now live with my husband, John, on Brant County Road 22. My great-great-great-grandparents, Martin and Mary Anne Deagle, arrived in Brant County from Germany in approximately 1852, and they are buried in a little cemetery on Campbell Road. Many of their descendants settled in and around Middleport and were members of the Middleport Church, and many are buried in the cemetery there. Thus my interest in local history and my desire to see our lovely little church restored to its former glory, and why I have been a member of the Middleport Heritage Society since its inception in March 2020.
I'm Mary Anne Workman-Rose, the daughter of Catherine Carr Workman and Donald Howard Workman. My paternal Workman family immigrated from Northern Ireland and settled in Onondaga Township about 1860 on a farm in the community on Baptist Church Road. It remains in the family to this day. That relationship has provided lifelong opportunities to learn from family, neighbors, and community members, their stories, folklore, and traditions. It's a privilege to serve with the Middleport Heritage Society as a member and board member to preserve our community heritage.
I'm Blain Albin, and my family moved here to Onondaga Township in 1970. My mom and dad built a home on the original Douglas farm along the Grand River on the east end of Onondaga Township. I grew up here. I was born in 1970, and I grew up here, and I still live on the property. I live in the original farmhouse, and my family started the Grand River Cruises, and my sister and I run it now. And I recently became a board member on the Middleport Heritage Society. So I'm a new person to the organization, so I'm still learning about what they're all about, but I'm quite excited to do this podcast and record some of the local history. So I'm quite excited to be involved. Mary Anne, could you tell us about what the Middleport Heritage Society does?
Sure, Blain. The Middleport Heritage Society is a not-for-profit organization. We were incorporated in 2020 and later became a registered charity under the umbrella of the Ontario Historical Society. Our mandate is to celebrate the rich, natural, cultural, and built heritage of the village of Middleport and communities in the former Onondaga Township. We do this through preservation, education, stewardship. In terms of preservation, our goals are to research, document, digitalize photographs, documents, and artifacts. So they're available for present and future generations, and these celebrate generations before us that have preserved them to this time. We're fortunate to be able to provide educational opportunities like workshops, tours, events, speakers. We host a website and a social media platform, Facebook. The group has enjoyed ventures that explore Friday Farm features, genealogy research, and we're presently happy to be speaking to you now about launching the Middleport Heritage Society podcast. Stewardship is another important part of our endeavor. St. Paul's Chapel in Middleport is a rare 1868 board and batten structure that will become an inclusive, accessible, and multi-purpose community venue. So it'll be available for everybody, and through the Middleport Heritage Society's efforts, restoration and much preservation has already taken place. We also help to support the cemetery trustees with maintenance, research in terms of genealogy, and upkeep of the cemetery itself.
Onondaga Township was first settled in and around 1838, officially becoming a township of Brant County in 1853. The two main villages in the township, Middleport and Onondaga, were founded during the early years of settlement. In those early years, the villages flourished because of being ports for the then thriving Grand River Navigation Company, which built and operated a series of locks and dams that made the Grand River navigable from Brantford to Lake Erie. Although passenger service was offered on the paddle wheelers Red Jacket and the Queen, the main commodity was timber, as it was harvested from the area as the early settlers cleared the land to establish farms in the beautiful clay loam soil. Neighboring Middleport to the west and across the river to the south is the Six Nations of the Grand River Territory. The Six Nations of the Grand River are a confederacy of Haudenosaunee indigenous people. Before European contact in the 16th century, their home included our part of Ontario and the New York State area. In 1784, after the American Revolution, the Haldimand Proclamation granted a group of Haudenosaunee people, led by Joseph Brant, a 12-mile wide stretch along the entire length of the Grand River. Originally an area of almost 1 million acres, by 1840 it had shrunk to 46,000 acres. One of the Six Nations is the Onondagas, from which the township and the village take their name. Middleport was formerly known as Tuscarora, another of the Six Nations. It's all this rich history that will be a feature of the Middleport Heritage Society podcast. Not only the foundational history of the region, but the more recent history as well. The recent history will come from oral histories, memories, and stories told by our very own community members. There's countless stories out there in the community, and we plan on capturing as many as we can.
We will also talk about what's happening within the Middleport Heritage Society. The Society organizes several events throughout the year, like our annual general meeting in March, seasonal church services at St. Paul's Church, and several other fun educational events. If you're interested in seeing what is happening, please visit our upcoming events listed on our website.
We invite you to connect with the Middleport Heritage Society by looking up our website and joining our Facebook group. We also invite you to become a member of the Middleport Heritage Society. It's only $10. Members receive our semi-annual newsletter and get early bird privileges to some of our events. Membership helps us measure our connection to the community, and this opens doors for us when we are working to achieve our goals. And did I mention it's only $10? Links for all these things are in the show notes. Also, subscribe to this podcast. Our first real episode will be published on March 30th and feature part of our visit with longtime community legend Marjorie Featherston.
Goodbye for now, and I hope you enjoy our podcast.